serve on 5 committees, each senator does, and one of my committees is education. So I'm sure everybody's aware that we've been working on the education reform bill past year. It's just been voted out of the education committee, and that's probably going to be the first thing on the agenda in the Senate. And I was part of 6 or 8 meetings in the upstate area, going around talking with teachers groups, listening to their concerns. And as a result of that, I did offer one amendment, and that was to let schools determine their own start date. You know, right now schools cannot start before the 3rd Monday in August. And that amendment did not pass, so I offered a second amendment that said schools could start no earlier than August 8th, because I had talked with the Greenville people, and they said if we could start by August 8th, we know we could get the first semester done by Christmas. And right now, if you're not aware, you know, they don't get the semester done by Christmas. They come back after Christmas, and it's a fairly inefficient way to do things, schedule things, you know, to split the semester up like that. We finally couldn't get that passed. Finally, we did get an amendment passed that would allow schools to start a week earlier, second Monday in August. And I imagine that we're going to have a big fight about that when we get to the floor, because the coastal people, particularly in Horry County, want it to be later, you know, for the tourism. But I think we've got to do first and foremost what's best for the students and for education. And I think if people are going to the beach, they're going to go to the beach one way or the other. That a week's difference in our start date could be helpful and could allow a lot of these districts to get the first semester done by Christmas. So that's just one thing I think is important. Y'all all know that we've had a great issue with the failed nuclear power plants in the middle of the state, and sometime in the next 6 months we're going to probably make a decision on how that's going to be dealt with, and I can't tell you because nobody knows what that decision is going to be. We've asked for 3 proposals. One proposal would be a sale of Santee Cooper. A second proposal we've asked for is, you know, tell us through a proposal how an outside company could manage Santee Cooper, but it still be the state-owned utility. And then the third proposal we've asked for is give us your best shot at how you could restructure Santee Cooper, keep it in the hands of the state, but restructure it so it's a more efficient organization. So that's going to be an enormous decision that the General Assembly is going to have to make. We haven't got that report in our hands, but I think when we do, we'll have the kind of information we need, you know, to make a decision. There's a couple of things that I want to mention by way of passing. One is that there's a lot of frustration with Washington, D.C. and the way things are done up there, and the kind of issues that concern people that we can't seem to make any progress on. I know 10 years ago when I was running for Congress, we were all talking about the deficit, you know, back when it was in its teenage trillion-dollar years, and now it's over $20 trillion. And for some reason, now that the Republicans are in control in Washington, we're not talking about the deficit, and I think that's a problem. And so I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with what's called the Convention of the States, or Article 5 Convention. But I think you're going to see some activity in the Senate, at least, to put forward a resolution, a narrowly tailored resolution to call for a convention, an Article 5 convention, specifically for the purpose of a balanced budget amendment to be created that would then be sent to the states for ratification. I believe there's 28 states that have already passed such a resolution. And so there's just a handful of more states that are needed. They passed resolutions specifically, you know, for a balanced budget amendment, and I think we're probably going to take a shot at that in the Senate. I will say this, and then I'll sit down, that one thing I did promise when I was campaigning was that I would introduce a term limits bill, and I have introduced a term limits bill, and very briefly what I am asking is that we amend our Constitution to say that the citizens have the right to set term limits for their state legislators. Now, I'm taking a two-step approach to this. The first step would be to amend the Constitution. A second step would be separate legislation that would actually spell out what those limitations would be. I didn't want to try to make one proposal that would include the term limits in and of itself, because that would give people much too easy excuse for saying they can't support it because they think the term should be 10 years, a limit, instead of 12 years or whatever. The first step is simply to put forward a referendum question to the voters, but it has to come through the General Assembly that would say, do you want to be able to vote someday on limiting the terms of your state legislators? So that's something I'm going to be pushing in the Senate. Obviously that's an uphill fight, but it's kind of like the balanced budget. If there's two things in this country I know the citizens could do if they were able to, one would be balanced budget, and second, they would limit the terms of their legislators so that we could see a regular turnover in our legislative bodies to ensure that we have representation that is in tune with the public and new ideas coming in on a regular basis. So those are some of the things I'm going to be working on in Columbia, and of course there's going to be many others, but just a few of the highlights. Thank you very much.
Representative Brian White, if you come and let us know what you're looking to, whether you can sit there if you'd like, or you can stand here, but talk to us about the legislative points that you're working on this year.
Well, one, thank you. I'm going to stand because my arms, I forgot my glasses are in the truck. And thank goodness whoever printed this is a little larger, so I can actually make out. I made out the agenda now, but figure that part out, the big bold part that they're doing. But it's always good to be with you. And Happy New Year. I know Ron's extremely happy. The Georgia Bulldogs won last night. Good little game to start with. I think they pulled it away there in the end, but it was so exciting I fell asleep and woke back up and finished. I tend to do that with a lot of the games. I did that for New Year's, same thing. But I did stay up for that Clemson game. So go Tigers. But I think Senator Cash hit the nail on the head. A lot of this talk in Columbia for the last several years has been education. And it's so broad, and it's going to take a while to get it done. And there's whether it's you got the public, whether you're going to do private, you're going to do charter schools. You've got all this different stuff wound into it. Teachers' salaries. If you give the teachers their salaries, well, do you include the stipends for the folks that aren't teachers within the school district? That basically hits your local taxpayers if we don't pick that tab up while we're doing the same thing. So all those not associated with the classroom. I think state employees are coming to it with their pay raises this year as well. You'll see a lot of that go on. So I think this year you're going to see that part, which kind of gets into part of your agenda when you're talking about pension systems. Totally eliminate the state pension system, going totally private. Well, part of the issue with that is such low pay for state employees. You have a lot of state employees in hazardous jobs, so you almost need that disability benefit for the prison guards, for the highway patrol, for all these other folks that are out there working in that part. So you can't just, it's not as easy as flipping the switch on it. It takes a little bit to get it. And we do have, and a lot of people don't speak to it, you do have the optional retirement system that was put in underneath Mark Sanford. So if you're coming in, you can opt to do your own. You don't have to go into the states. But the states was there for that purpose of having that option for those folks that, our prison guards that up until a couple of years ago were making $23,000 a year. So I don't know how you're going to save in a 401k for your retirement when you're making $23,000 a year. And you essentially, the family, you're on food stamps, you're on Medicaid, or everything else. So you do have the state system there. So that's kind of, the picture of that, of where the pension system is and where it is. But We have been increasing those salaries too as we go on. Class 1 police officers, I think they're now at $28,000. So we have been getting to that point. Teachers, I think we're getting them up to 35. So things are beginning to progress. We are going that direction. And on that, it's a good thing that you're not in here. I saw reading this took place yesterday, and coming on is a lot of different states, counties, cities are going out there taking their minimum wage at $15 an hour. You know, is that a good thing, or just leave the federal at 7 and let, you know, folks like Granger determine, the market will determine what you're going to have to pay to hire someone. You shouldn't be putting that in law of what you're going to pay someone as a minimum. I think that does bad things, has repercussions on the part. Well, I know I'm going to make 15, so I don't have to work harder to get that raise to go on merit side of things. So I mean, I think that's a good thing we do on that part. And don't forget, Granger Nissan, today is the end of their year, so you still have time to go buy a car. Banks are back open, so you don't have to worry about those holidays. The bank's being closed, Granger's open. Go buy something. See Mr. Cox and Grady's.
I was
all
wondering
the
how
time.
you
So, I
got
mean,
that new Nissan.
It's a what?
I was wondering how you got that new Nissan out there.
Well, I'm not going to tell you what I'm driving because it's not a new Nissan. And it's covered with mud and got scratches all over because I've been deer hunting the last couple of days, trying to end the season out on a good note. So get some meat in the freezer. So we did do that too. But you're going to see a lot of different things in Columbia. Something that I'm working on and have been working on for years is broadband. And you look at South Carolina, a rural area, you look at all the initiatives we want to do, whether it's job creation, whether it's health care, whether it's just communicating with the world. There are areas, and if Mike Gambrell were here, you know, he lives in rural Anderson County. Filter Plant Road does not have internet service. Anderson County, believe it or not. So how are we going to take the e-learning like we do in District 5, which is saving us money, we're eliminating snow days, kids are going to go. We're spending millions of dollars. We created a pathway program for kids to be able to go get dual enrollment, to go to college while they're going to high school. If you're in that job that I was talking about that's making minimum wage, you want to go back to school, but you don't qualify for the lottery because you're not able to take the 12 hours to get that welding certificate, get the HVAC certificate, you can go do that now. But if you're in an area that doesn't have broadband, Grayson and Tri-County Tech, you can't turn a paper in anymore. It has to be uploaded. Your assignments are loaded. So you have to get into the real world of being able to do this. So we're given dual enrollment, but there's a lot of kids that can't do dual enrollment unless there's a Starbucks or a McDonald's somewhere nearby, and they got to have a car to be able to go there to do their assignments, get their work, and do the things they need to do. So it's just that basic building block has to be put in place, and that's something we've been working on. We've got money to do it. Other states are doing it. We're getting behind the times if we don't now. It takes in all of our part we've been doing with the telemedicine. You can take telemedicine now. Every child must attend elementary school. You can drop out of high school when you're 16, check yourself out and be gone if you want to. But before that, you have to be in school. So we talk about health disparities in health areas. We got a captive audience already in school. So all we got to get is the telemedicine to the school with a robot. We got to work a little bit smarter, not so much harder with what we have. The Career Center with Holly over here doing a fabulous job. The kids are over there. We know where they're going. You know, we got DHEC nurses out here. We got ANMED's got nurses. We got rural health nurses. We got all these different things. We've all seen that old picture of 2 bales of hay, you know, or 1 bale of hay with the donkeys trying to go in different directions. You know, just teamwork. Everybody's got to communicate and use the resources we already have more efficiently and combining different things. Met with Carol Burdett United Way. They're doing a lot of stuff in education where they're doing broadband's coming on. It's beginning to take hold now. People are beginning to see it. School start date's wonderful. I think the calendar is more important. You can't have someone in one school on an AB schedule, one on a block. How are you going to do dual enrollment? You all got to be on the same page. And that's something I think that nothing's been addressed in the education bill about it, but it's something that we're kidding ourselves. If we want to help poor rural South Carolina get up, then we got to have high school on the same schedule as a college. So they can take those classes in college and be able to do it. We got to get them broadband access so they can upload their lessons and do the things they're doing. So you can have someone come out of high school with a certificate, with no debt, that can now go buy a Granger Nissan and will qualify for run to get a loan. So those are the things we have to start doing as government but it's that first building block of get broadband, get everybody on the same schedule. Because if you don't, it's just not, there's areas it's just always going to be in that situation that it can't thrive because of it. Then that'll build up your economy in your local areas. So now you have a machine shop. They were talking about South Georgia. They both, Senator Cash and Ron have somehow, they keep talking. A good thing I'm in between them because they're related by the end of this meeting from South Georgia. But those rural areas where it was farming communities is changing. Well, the USDA wants you to upload your reports, download your reports. You can have a little machine shop down there because all you can download the plans. You don't have to move somewhere else. So that helps those little poor rural areas that we've got, IVAs, the STARS, in South Carolina, just in Anderson County, that need LaFrance in my area, that need something to help boost them up. These are just the fundamental blocks. Like I said, we have the money to do it. That kind of covers your whole workforce, healthcare, education, all in one. And it's hard to move that ball sometimes as the snowball when it goes downhill collects more. Well, I think it's time that this one's been collecting more speed and getting more things attached to it. So I think it will be my number one priority is to get that. It's out of the House, it's in the Senate. I've been working with the senators on that part to get that going. So I think that's kind of where we are on that part. Again, I think it's always a pleasure to see smiling faces. Happy New Year.
This is always sort of the kickoff for the season. We know we're going back to work when we hit this day, and I don't feel like we've even stopped working. It's probably been one of the busiest off seasons. I think all of us can agree that we've had in quite some time. During the last session, a lot of it was taken up by the education bill, and every time I felt like I had a grasp on it, and it was 80-something pages, they would change it. And then I would grasp the next 80 and the next 80. And anyway, it was just an ongoing learning experience. Some of the things that we did get done is I worked very closely with, I know y'all won't believe this, but a Democrat in the House. And we got the vaping bill through, and we worked really hard on that. And I'm also working with another female colleague that's also a Democrat, and we're working on some bills to address the massage parlor issues in the state. So anyway, Columbia is not like Washington, D.C. We do actually work with the other parties some, and we certainly find those places where we have commonalities and move forward. So one of the things that I did want to address, though, is term limits. I'm helping Senator Cash, and he didn't mention that. You didn't mention your gun bill, did you?
Go ahead.
Senator Cash actually has a gun bill right now. If you're a church, you can set up a security system and that type of thing to protect yourself when you're worshiping. However, as a lot of you know, in our area especially, we have a lot of schools that rent to churches on Sunday morning, and because that is on a school property, that they can't do that. They're not allowed to do that. So anyway, the bill would basically just say someone that was trained could carry if the church so gave them permission, so that those places of worship are protected as well. And so it's actually Senator Cash's bill, an idea. I dropped the sister companion bill in the House just to help. He has moved it through the Senate unanimously, and so we're going to be working really hard. I've kind of committed to him to try and get that out of the House side this year. So I'm working with him on that. I will say to the term limits, though, totally disagree. I felt the same way too when I was first elected, that we needed term limits. And I think it would be great if we had term limits, but you limited the lobbyists and all the staff. But until you limit the lobbyists and all the staff, then they're going to be running the state, and they almost do anyway. I can remember when I was first elected, I loved to tell Billy O'Dell when we would go to meetings and speak, I would always make the joke that I was 5 when Billy O'Dell was elected to the Senate, and he, at the very end, he would always get up and just walk to the microphone and say, "I'm old as hell," before representative gets up here and tells you that. And so, but you know what? I loved having him and him having that knowledge, just like Representative White, you know, because you'll go and you'll say, not that you're old, right?
Dog years, baby. Dog years.
He's just been there a while. Since I was 5, no. But anyway, just being able to go to them and sort of discuss ideas, and they can go, this does work, this won't work because, or we tried this in, 1969, Brian would say, and it didn't work because whatever. But, it's nice to have that history there, because if not, we're going to continue to make a lot of mistakes that have probably been tried before. This year, moving forward, basically, we have spent our off session just getting ready. As Senator Cash mentioned, Representative Cox actually set us up with meetings with every single school and the administration for School District 1. We went and met with them. We passed out questionnaires because we felt like there were probably some things they didn't want to say in front of the administration, and we wanted to make sure that we got real answers about the concerns of the teachers in our area. I set up the same type meeting with Kyle Newton for District 5, and we just met with the teachers of the year, and same thing, just got that input. So we're really working hard to understand what they want. They sort of have a lobbying group telling us what they want, but is that the real answer? So anyway, I think once again, we'll spend the year figuring out what's in this bill and only to watch it change. And as Senator Cash mentioned, Santee Cooper, to try and get experienced and know everything there is to know about that, it's a true education process. We're expected to know everything or a little bit about a lot of things. And when you start talking about Santee Cooper, something that your state owns, and the possibility of getting rid of it, we need to truly understand every aspect of that. So I know that that's going to be a huge education learning process for me. And then one of the things that I also wanted to mention that's on the legislative agenda sheet is the child care. I don't know if a lot of you realize, but if your kids are staying in an after-school program at the Y or something like that, they operate by totally different regulations than our child care centers. And I think that we've probably over-regulated a lot of these child care centers, and we need to look at these regulations. We want our children to be safe, but I think that's where a lot of the cost is coming from, and I think that's something that we probably need to open up and look at closely at the State House. And then lastly, the last thing I want to mention, because Senator Cash, Representative Cox, and I have been working really hard on this. Unfortunately, our county has some of the worst DSS numbers in the entire state, and we certainly do not want to be known for that. And so we have put together sort of a small little group to address that, and we've spoken with DSS, we've met with them, we've met with the judges, we've been working with some of the folks at the state level, and we are just bound and determined to change those numbers and put us closer to the bottom and not at the top. So we've put in a lot of time and a lot of effort there, and we'll continue to do so even while we're in session. So I'm going to give some of these other folks a chance, but anyway, I just want to say that, as always, I'm just honored that you let me go up there and serve you and, go Granger Nissan. This is always sort of the kickoff for the season. We know we're going back to work when when we hit this day, and I don't feel like we've even stopped working. It's probably been one of the busiest off seasons. I think all of us can agree that we've had in quite some time. During the last session, a lot of it was taken up by the education bill. And every time I felt like I had a grasp on it, and it was 80-something pages, they would change it. And then I would grasp the next 80 and the next 80. And anyway, it was just an ongoing learning experience. Some of the things that we did get done is I worked very closely with, I know y'all won't believe this, but a Democrat in the House. And we got the vaping bill through, and we worked really hard on that. And I'm also working with another female colleague that's also a Democrat, and we're working on some bills to address the massage parlor issues in the state. So anyway, Columbia is not like Washington, D.C. We do actually work with the other parties some, and we certainly find those places where we have commonalities and move forward. So one of the things that I did want to address, though, is term limits. I'm helping Senator Cash, and he didn't mention that. You didn't mention your gun bill, did you?
Go ahead.
Senator Cash actually has a gun bill right now. If you're a church, you can set up a security system and that type of thing to protect yourself when you're worshiping. However, as a lot of you know, in our area especially, we have a lot of schools that rent to churches on Sunday morning, and because that is on the school property, that they can't do that. They're not allowed to do that. So anyway, the bill would basically just say someone that was trained could carry if the church so gave them permission, so that those places of worship are protected as well. And so it's actually Senator Cash's bill, and I dropped the sister companion bill in the House just to help. He has moved it through the Senate unanimously, and so we're going to be working really hard. I've kind of committed to him to try and get that out of the House side this year. So I'm working with him on that. I will say to the term limits, though, I totally disagree. I felt the same way too when I was first elected, that we needed term limits. And I think it would be great if we had term limits, but you limited the lobbyists and all the staff. But until you limit the lobbyists and all the staff, then they're going to be running the state, and they almost do anyway. I can remember when I was first elected, I loved to tell Billy O'Dell when we would go to meetings and speak, I would always make the joke that I was 5 when Billy O'Dell was elected to the Senate, and he, at the very end, he would always get up and just walk to the microphone and say, "I'm old as hell," before Representative gets up here and tells you that. And so, but you know what? I loved having him and him having that knowledge, just like Representative White, you know, because you'll go and you'll say, not that you're old, right?
Dog years, baby. Dog years.
He's just been there a while. Since I was 5, no. But anyway, just being able to go to them and sort of discuss ideas, and they can go, this does work, this won't work because, or we tried this in, 1969, Brian would say, and it didn't work because whatever. But, it's nice to have that history there, because if not, we're going to continue to make a lot of mistakes that have probably been tried before. This year, moving forward, basically, we have spent our off session just getting ready. As Senator Cash mentioned, Representative Cox actually set us up with meetings with every single school and the administration for School District 1. We went and met with them. We passed out questionnaires because we felt like there were probably some things they didn't want to say in front of the administration, and we wanted to make sure that we got real answers about the concerns of the teachers in our area. I set up the same type meeting with Kyle Newton for District 5, and we just met with the teachers of the year, and same thing, just got that input. So we're really working hard to understand what they want. They sort of have a lobbying group telling us what they want, but is that the real answer? So anyway, I think once again, we'll spend the year figuring out what's in this bill and only to watch it change. And as Senator Cash mentioned, Santee Cooper, to try and get experienced and know everything there is to know about that, it's a true education process. You know, we're expected to know everything or a little bit about a lot of things. And when you start talking about Santee Cooper, something that your state owns and the possibility of getting rid of it, we need to truly understand every aspect of that. So I know that that's going to be a huge education learning process for me. And then one of the things that I also wanted to mention that's on the legislative agenda sheet is the child care. You know, I don't know if a lot of you realize, but if your kids are staying in the after-school program at the Y or something like that, they operate by totally different regulations than our child care centers. And I think that we've probably over-regulated a lot of these child care centers, and we need to look at these regulations. We want our children to be safe, but I think that's where a lot of the cost is coming from. And I think that's something that we probably need to open up and look at closely at the State House. And then lastly, the last thing I want to mention, because Senator Cash, Representative Cox, and I have been working really hard on this. Unfortunately, our county has some of the worst DSS numbers in the entire state, and we certainly do not want to be known for that. And so we have put together sort of a small little group to address that, and we've spoken with DSS, we've met with them, we've met with the judges, we've been working with some of the folks at the state level, and we are just bound and determined to change those numbers and put us closer to the bottom and not at the top. So we've put in a lot of time and a lot of effort there, and we'll continue to do so even while we're in session. So I'm going to give some of these other folks a chance, but anyway, I just want to say that, as always, I'm just honored that you let me go up there and serve you and, you know, go Granger Nissan.
Good morning. Good morning. It's really nice to be with you again. I appreciate that. I don't know who picked 7:30 in the morning, but, you know, good on you. It's been really nice for us this year until my mother-in-law showed up. She came for Christmas, and we made it through that. But it's been an interesting time for us. You know, she's just a very nice person. I gave her a gift, and we got her out of the house, so thank God. I'm not kidding. But anyway, a couple of things I think you're going to see on our side this year that we really haven't talked about. You know, we have $1.8 billion of overpay, some people say, or savings. It's accumulated over 3 years, okay, a lot of that money. So we're going to have recurring and non-recurring funds. What I'm hearing right now is you're going to see it go in, some of it go into reserve, some of it go into tax breaks for you and for the people here, and then we're going to make sure the teachers, our promise to them is taken care of, and we can actually get the money into the classroom. I think that's the biggest concern that we're having right now, is making sure that the educational dollars actually go into the classroom. I know that's a big push all the way around. On the other side of that same coin, you know, education is absolutely critical right now, and I'm waiting on the day. Brian and I have talked about this a lot. At some point, parents are going to figure out you can go to a technical college in South Carolina and get the first 2 years of your college education virtually at very little cost, and then go on to your college to receive your degree and then maybe an advanced degree. It's going to happen at some point. So I think we've got to be prudent and plan ahead. I hate to be reactionary, and I want to make sure that our students have those opportunities. At the same time, we need to be providing the opportunities for those students who are willing to go into those high-need areas like welding and other areas that we have right here in Anderson County. I don't know, Brian, last number was 200 welders, maybe, that we had jobs for right here in Anderson County. So, you know, there are a lot of issues like that I think we need to look at with our technical colleges. They are the front line for us. You guys know, there's no secret, I'm big on economic development. I have yet to understand how somebody can oppose economic development. They always use the statement that we're giving away money when we shouldn't be giving away money. I want you to hear this. We give away the money that they are going to be paying in taxes. All right? We don't give them free money out of the coffers. All right? And that's one thing I think we've done in Anderson County with Mike and Brian over the years, is bring in very good, high-paying jobs like Arthrex, and evidently, if I want a car, Granger Nissan, and a few others.
You didn't get that.
But those are the things that make a difference to us, and I think we've got to continue to focus there. That's what set South Carolina apart all the way back from the Carroll Campbell days. So, you know, that's something that I care about and I'm concerned about, is making sure that the people here have jobs where they can afford to have a good living and raise their children and families in a place that makes a difference.
And own a Nissan.
What'd you say?
And own a Nissan.
You got to talk faster.
And own a Nissan.
And on a Nissan. She talks so daggum slow. It's like, hi. She's my desk mate. It takes 5 minutes to understand one sentence. I don't know where it comes from. It's better than the last thing you threw at me. I'm on the Labor, Commerce, and Industry Committee. I serve on the Public Utility Committee there, and I also serve on the Insurance Committee. Then on Legislative Oversight, I chair the Healthcare Subcommittee on Healthcare Regulations, and we just finished up Department of Mental Health. Hopefully we'll do some really neat things with mental health down the road. I'm a big believer in preventative mental health care. I think we need to be in the schools with mental health counselors, at least one counselor per two schools at least. I think it's a lot more efficient for us if we handle mental health on the front end from a preventative early diagnostic standpoint, addressing it early, than waiting till later on to actually deal with those things. So I'm hoping that you'll see some things like that take place as well. The other thing is I have Health and Human Services coming up this year. Health and Human Services is kind of like the Medicaid clearinghouse. They do a lot of different things. It's kind of like the big bear. So we're going to be getting into Health and Human Services and oversight. Hopefully, from what I've been working with a group from Johns Hopkins, systems engineer. And hopefully, from what I've gathered from all their data in vast databases, there's probably 10, the range is really extensive, but there's 10 to 62% of fraud in the Medicaid system. So, you know, it's tough to expand something when you got that much fraud. So hopefully we're going to take a deep dive. We're going to look at all those issues within the Medicaid system and hopefully reduce some of that fraud in the state. We've got some mechanisms, thanks to some of these other people, that hopefully we can put in. So that's it. You guys enjoy yourself. Have a great week, and I'm gonna go call my mother-in-law and tell her hello. Things went well.
Thank you, Pam. Like she said, I am Wes Cox. I represent District 10, which for those of you who don't know, that includes the White Plains, Piedmont, and Powdersville communities of Anderson County. It also includes part of Pickens County and Greenville County. So I have 3 counties that I have to do this for every year. We've done it for Greenville County, and at least the microphones work here. So we had a Greenville County legislative breakfast, and that was the big problem. Nobody could hear anything past the first door. But I want to kind of talk about what they talked about a little bit to show that we're dealing with those same problems in the upstate in all the counties. Particularly for this group, you know, we have a 3 or 4% unemployment, and you know, you got to think that anybody that can get a job or needs a job has the ability to get a job. But then we realize not everybody can get a job. Not everybody has those things. And for me, one of the things we really need to start looking at in the upstate and in the state as a whole is the barriers to workforce entry. And once you get there and get a job, I'm not sure if it was the Chamber's legislative survey or something else, but I saw a survey that said 40% of the people put down reliable transportation as one of their barriers to the workforce. And so apparently they're not driving Granger Nissans. But that's a huge issue, and how do we get them there? We need to look at transportation issues as a whole in a region and getting people and moving them to the places where the jobs are. I mean, in broadband, Representative White's already touched on that. That's a huge thing. If we can knock out those 2 things, then we'll be down to 1%. 1% unemployment. And another thing that's a huge issue is mental health. And that's something we really haven't talked about in the last 15 years in the state. And so I think that's a third prong thing that we really need to start looking at, and making sure that those services are affordable, available, and in every community, so that those people that do get jobs can keep their jobs because they're not scared to get up in the morning and they're not scared to go to work. And so those are sort of the three of the things we want to start looking at and digging down into to see, so that we can put prosperity in every house in this county and in the upstate. Being new, I learned a few things this year. I learned where the bathrooms were at the State House. That was probably the first thing I figured out. I learned that they're not going to tell you anything important. You kind of have to go and figure that out on your own. So you can't wait around and wait for somebody to tell you what's going on. And I learned that for the legislative process, the biggest mistake you can make is try to amend something on the floor, because legislation, when it gets amended on the floor, it typically gets screwed up. And one example of that this past year was civil asset forfeiture reform. We had a bill in the House that was going to fix a lot of the issues with civil asset forfeiture, which, if you don't know what that is, that's if you've been accused of a crime, the law officers can seize things that, money in your car, that sort of thing, and then there's not a lot of due process in getting that back. And an individual tried to amend it on the floor to just, instead of reforming civil asset forfeiture, outlawing civil asset forfeiture in the state. And then after everybody realized what we did, we came back the next day, amended it again, didn't do that, and now we have a study committee that may or may not ever put out a report about that, and we do anything with it. But I say that to say this, that when things get to the floor, when things get passed, that's not really a good time for us to hear from you. We need to hear from you on the front end. We need to hear from you when you know of something that's affecting your job, your livelihood, your community. We need to hear from you so we can be proactive in getting those things done and trying to make a difference on that legislation and issues you're having. If there's not legislation, issues you're having, you need to reach out to us and so we can try to fix those issues and things. Because I think we voted on, or we had, the House had over 1,000 bills introduced last year alone. I mean, it's impossible for any of us to read all of those, to know everything that's going on, to know everything that's coming out of the committee. So it's really important for you on the front end to represent your businesses, your communities, and keep an eye on what we're doing and let us know how we can better represent you. Two of the things that I said when I ran this past year, or 2 years ago, was I wanted to try and get resources into my community, resources into my district that hadn't been done in the past, and I'm proud to say we've accomplished that. We've got $80,000 in local delegation money going to Powdersville, going to Piedmont in District 10, so I'm proud of that. That's the first time that money's gone up there for these purposes in over 10 years, so I'm really proud of that, proud of being able to do that. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without everybody up here and learning from them and talking to them and trying to figure out and getting them to vote with me and do that. So I appreciate everybody doing that. But I mentioned that to say that this is a team, at least for the 6 of us up here. We're a team. We try to work together in Columbia and at home. We try to represent you well and make sure that the things that are going on in Belton, that we care about them in Powdersville and in Anderson and everything, and try to represent you well at the State House and work together. And I think we do a pretty good job of that. Recently in the state newspaper, there was an article about the Richland County Legislative Delegation. It broke out into a cuss fight, and so we haven't had that yet. We may stay tuned though, because we do have 2 meetings upcoming this year. But I just kind of want to leave you with that we do try to work together as a team in Columbia and represent you and do those things. And so I'm proud to serve with these individuals up here. It's an honor and a privilege to serve you. And if you ever need something from me, just call me and I'll do the best I can to figure it out. Thank you.
Now we're going to come to a time where I want to kind of go through, and I appreciate all of you talking to us, and we'll have Q&A, but I want to call to your attention, on your place underneath your agenda, we have the Upstate Chamber Coalition legislative agenda for 2020, and that is put together by looking and talking with each of you. I don't think I'm going to do the PowerPoint, I'm just going to talk to it because I want to give more time for Q&A. But this will be everything you see in the agenda that we have put forward. The Upstate Chamber Coalition, if you're not aware of that, it is a 10-county region, and we all come together and talk about those issues. We are also part of the OPACC, the Oconee Pickens Alliance Corporation, or a Chamber Coalition, and a lot of their issues are in here, and I'm going to talk about one specifically that's not, and call that out in a second. But you can look through the legislative agenda. I could have done a PowerPoint on it, but again, I want to allow you to have more Q&A time with our officials. But this is what your chamber has put forward. Now, it is not just from your chamber, this is from you. When we sent out the surveys, all 10 county chamber presidents sent out the surveys to our community. This is what came back from all 10 counties that has been combined into one, and what we put out to our delegation each year from those 10 counties to tell them those are the things that we are pushing forward. And I want to call attention to one particular, and Brian, I know that all the representatives, and I appreciate you guys really were strong in helping to push that through, and you were talking on that in the very beginning, was what we could do, and that would really help the workforce as well, but also keep from having that repetitive where you have someone that has gone through crime and they continue to have that just kind of go forward, and you have to help them break that. So the expungement part, to look at people who are not hardened criminals, but things that they could be expunged from that were misdemeanors, I think that's a great area that's going to help us with workforce going forward from time to come. And additionally, I'm going to be meeting tomorrow with one of our industries, and they are looking at a national perspective of doing this. They're meeting in the different states that they have operations, but they are working on what they can do to help in that area as well. So we're going to be pulling that industry in and setting that up and helping them and working with our sheriff's office. So I'm excited. I think that's going to take some new initiatives, Brian, that I think all of the House of Representatives and the Senate then pass that too, so that we can really work and get more accomplished in that area. So I'm excited about that. Additionally, want to let you know on the next sheet you have behind you is what the Chamber put forward on our position statement on the South Carolina State Water Plan. We are really blessed in Anderson County. We have people that meet with us with our water resources. We have a water resources committee and have had since the year 2003. And we've had great chairmen that have led that up, and in our businesses that help us, the Corps of Engineers sits on that, Clemson University, Biotech. So that's a really great group of concerned citizens that we look not only on the levels of the lake, so those of you that are using it, you want the levels of the lake to be better, and whether you live on it, you want that for visibility, or you want to be able to utilize all the recreation, but also, more importantly, we look at the potability of the water. And the level of the water and the water to make sure we maintain the levels that we have so that our industries can utilize that water, whether it's for the potability part of it or for them to continue on with the businesses and the support they have to make sure their industries are strong. So we work on that daily. The thing I want to draw your attention to is on that, we have also our water districts, I should say that. All of our water districts in Anderson County sit on this water committee as well with us, and I appreciate the Water Resources Committee people. From the second, Kaylee, I think you might be the only one that's here with me today that sits on it, but appreciate this. This is what we put together, and we're really pleased to have Scott Willett. I don't know if you realize, but Scott Willett with the Anderson Regional Joint Water Authority, he sits on the state water plan and helps address that. They have been a little bit behind on getting the plan done, but he's been one of those that has really been strong about pushing forward. We need to get that done. It needs to be accomplished. And also Dyke Spencer has too, from the Powdersville Water District. So we put together this, and they kept saying we need to make it a little bit more impactful and kind of give an input as to what we feel like needs to be allocated from the funds that we have from the budget to the surplus to be able to go towards the water plan. Because guys, that is going to be about not only the implementation, but the continuous protection of that water. We have to have that in Anderson County, and especially for the growth that's ahead. I can tell you not only the economic developers, but all of those water districts that help when we're recruiting business, They said what we have to do to continue to look at not only the water, but all of our infrastructure. So this is a key part of it. So I want to make sure that you have that, realize that your board of directors did approve off on putting that position statement forward, and we are submitting that forward to all of Anderson County and further. I know Charleston Chamber as well has submitted forward to all of their delegation, and I know that the state chamber is looking at it currently on what they're going to do and move forward, but I think you'll see a lot more people go forward on that. And that's where I was going to bring about the OPACC that we're part of, the Oconee Pickens Anderson Chamber Coalition. You won't see the water in this part, but that is a really key element for all of us because we're on the water in the OPACC. So that is one area that they're pushing forward too. We have to be protecting Lake Hartwell and staying on top of that. I don't know if y'all realize what a precious piece that we have there in economic development, the water. And Georgia has rallied for their water. They've rallied Tennessee, Florida. I mean, that's been an ongoing thing. So we have to do what we can to protect that water source. That's critical for all of us in economic development. I will say, before I open up to Q&A, I would really appreciate what all our delegation has done too, and backing our career centers from K through 12. They've done a great job, and that's really helping us in our workforce development for our future, for the workforce, for all of our industries and business. And we appreciate what they're doing. I see Holly shaking her head, yes, and Kyle as well. So we appreciate what they're doing in that initiative. That's really taken us forward.
Why is it important for y'all to participate in these kind of meetings early in the year here?
Well, first of all, number one, it's always helpful to us to hear from our constituents. So if you can get out there and kind of talk about the issues that we'll be facing this year, you know, as legislators, we're required to know a little bit about a lot of things. And sometimes some of the things that we're going to be looking at will actually affect some of our constituents personally. And so that way they have the opportunity to get in touch with us, get involved, make sure we really are looking at the right solutions, and sometimes offer advice as to how to make that legislation better. So.
And I noticed, even though there weren't any Q&As, as soon as it was over, everybody's crowding around talking to y'all.
Sometimes I think that, you know how it is, someone's afraid that it might be a dumb question. And a lot of times things are real personal to that business or to that person. And so a lot of times, usually when I leave one of these, I'm an hour getting out to my car after it's over, so, which is fine. And I always bring a notebook because I know I'm going to walk out of here with, I already have 3 to-do things when I walk out of here. So, you know, and you never know what you're gonna get at things like that. But listen, my best legislation comes from my constituents. It really does.
Thanks, Ann. Anytime you're ready.
Okay.
Why does the chamber host this event every year, and why is it important in the community?
We think it's great and it's important to educate the businesses and our citizens on what their stance is on the legislative issues, and also what's going to be impactful that they're working on for next year, and also so people realize what committees they're on. Sometimes they don't know what the representatives, senators, what committees they sit on in Columbia for us, so it's a good opportunity for them to see that. So if there's a particular area that they're representing that they're interested in, they can reach out to them, but also for them to know how they're working on business efforts for them. I think it's really important.
And one thing Jay West mentioned this morning, it's good to know on the front end rather than right at the time of the vote.
Yeah.
To be informed.
And I think that's why we've always put together a legislative agenda from the chamber to let them know what we feel like they need to carry out for our businesses, because we survey the businesses. And that's kind of like what they were saying, they wanted to get, you know, in touch with when they were talking about the teachers and meet with them to kind of find out firsthand what they needed. Well, we kind of do that middleman for them with the business community to find out what are the issues, what do you need them to tackle for you, what's keeping you up at night, so that they can hopefully have a good attack and a plan to carry out the things that help our businesses succeed. So I think it's a really good opportunity that we can join that together and help the businesses succeed with what they want to have from our legislators. So they've all been wonderful to work with. So we're blessed with a really great Anderson County delegation, really are. They work well together, and anytime I call them, they answer immediately. So they want to do what they can to help our businesses succeed, and they want to hear what the businesses need. So I think it's a great working together collaboration. So yeah, we appreciate it. It's come out every year. We do this every year, usually in January. So, but if you have anything from a business community standpoint, you're out there, let us know what we can do for you, what is bothering your business, what keeps you up at night, so that we can let them know, because that's what we're there for. The chamber was built to go and talk with our legislators on what we can do to protect our business community. And anything you're trying to cut through on red tape, we're there to try to help that. So I know a lot of our businesses don't have a full-time lobbyist. They can't. A lot of times they can't afford to do that. We're your lobbyists, so come let us know what we can do and help you with.